I'm JP, CTO and co-founder of Onapsis, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to TechNado's Human in Cyber interview. I think the opportunity to contribute is really timely because 2025 was definitely a critical year in terms of incidents affecting ERP applications in general, but SAP applications in particular. So, really happy to address the following questions. Across SAP environments, you reviewed what security control do organizations believe is working well, but in practice often is. Well, that question is at the core of cybersecurity for SAP. And because the the let's say initiative of securing SAP applications from the cybersecurity perspective started because of a gap that organizations had when addressing security in general, right? Organizations had an SAP security team addressing roles, profiles, authorizations, provisioning, deprovisioning of users. They also had an IT security team addressing managing firewalls, securing the custom applications, securing everything and anything around the IT landscape of that organization. And also an IT audit team that was analyzing all of these, the different applications, especially the ones that fall under different compliance mandates, ensuring that the right controls are in place. Well, historically, none of those teams were looking at the technology layer of SAP applications, vulnerabilities in the technology stack, integrations, customizations, critical authorizations, uh, especially around services and technical integrations, ports, protocols. All of those things were very, very far from the controls and visibility that historically organizations had. So even though they were dealing with security for SAP, they weren't doing it properly or holistically. So they were leaving a big gap. That's probably the biggest control failure that we've seen historically. Now, the good thing is that organizations are catching up and they are understanding that securing SAP implies more than just roles, profiles, authorizations. I'm going to address question number 2. When vulnerabilities disclosed through SAP Security Notes lead to incidents, what patterns tend to appear and how those patches were handled? Well, that really depends on the type of incident. SAP Security Notes involve, for the most part, software vulnerabilities or patches to software vulnerabilities. But it could also imply configurations, removing specific unnecessary, let's say, code or functionality of the system. It could imply many different types of changes. But in general, when we see an incident led by a vulnerability in an SAP Security Note, that's because of some type of gap in the patching process, in how quick the organization was able to adopt an SAP Security Note, implement it, and ensure that that vulnerability wasn't present in risks. Now, patching a system could mean many different things. Could mean as simple as applying a correction instruction, or as hard as to doing a kernel upgrade, or Java component upgrade, or even manual steps that navigate through different aspects of the system. So there's many different things that could be implied by applying a security note. But in general, it's very important for organizations to be able to react timely to security notes and patches. I'm going to address question number 3. While working with SAP customers, where does customization often introduce security blind spots that teams don't anticipate soon? Well, the concept of customizations is core to SAP applications. And I would say it's core to ERP in general, because even though you have a standard set of processes, business processes, very well defined and very mature, shipped by default across every single ERP product. Especially for the mid to large enterprise sector, you need to be able to map your business processes because your organization went through multiple changes, acquisitions, mergers, expansions, geographical expansion, presence across multiple geos and multiple countries. That complexity typically means that you need to be able to map your business process, customizing the standard processes so you can operate in the way that your organization requires. That typically requires code, new code, custom code deployed in your production system. And also means that you will have either a team of developers inside your organization or be using a third party, a partner developing for you, but someone is going to be maintaining and expanding that functionality. In many cases, that means millions of lines of code that could potentially introduce risk because it's new code. So that has to be assessed embedded from the lenses of security. We need, as organizations, we need to ensure that we are not introducing new vulnerabilities. So that's the biggest problem of customization, right? Is that organizations don't properly handle the security aspect, and eventually a lot of security vulnerabilities end up in our production code. I'm going to be addressing question number 4 concerning runtime detection techniques. When organizations deploy monitoring in SAP environment, what usually limits how far they can take? Monitoring is another key aspect of a mature program around SAP security. Being able to see what happens, who's doing what, or who's trying to do what on SAP applications is key. Now, to do that properly, we need to understand our landscape, which is not an easy thing in many cases, because our landscape may be composed out of hundreds, if not thousands, of different servers, application servers, part of specific systems, part of specific landscapes, all interconnected. So that will be the first part. Is like, okay, we're going to be monitoring the landscape. To what extent? What is our landscape that we're going to be monitoring? And B is really being able to set up the system in a way that can produce those traces, right? Security audit log, different type of logs that generate activity from users, from technical users as well, from services that allows us to see if someone is trying to exploit a vulnerability. So all of that visibility has to be available for the system to be able to consume it, analyze it. Because monitoring implies having visibility, continuous visibility around what happens on every single SAP system at every single point in time. Addressing question number 5, looking back at major SAP vulnerabilities, which design or architectural patterns tend to resurface most often? Many SAP vulnerabilities are critical. Historically, over the past couple of years, we have seen some of these major, like Recon, like AK Blaze, like ICMAD, the zero-day vulnerability that we saw actively exploited last year by multiple different threat actors. Each one of those vulnerabilities has a different nature, and there are architectural patterns that we can analyze and understand when we have this type of examples. The one that is most relevant and timely because of how recent it was is the zero-day campaign from last year. That was effectively a combination of a deserialization and the lack of authentication. And the deserialization issue is not new. It's a problem that was first discovered several years ago, and SAP had tackled pretty much every endpoint and vulnerability. However, because of what threat actors discovered, this new gadget allowing using very specific SAP classes, allowing them to execute arbitrary code, then this vulnerability resurfaced, and many endpoints became a problem again. So SAP had to patch multiple different Java applications, ultimately releasing a configuration solution to close the gap in a more global approach. So that definitely led to an architectural pattern of securing these serialization vulnerabilities, starting with a zero-day campaign. And question number 6: what has surprised you about how attackers approach SAP or ERP environments compared to how defenders expect them to behave? Well, I hate to go back to the same example, but I think the single biggest misunderstanding around trying to classify attackers that target SAP is to believe that attackers don't have SAP expertise or SAP knowledge. Over time, we have seen many different cases where attackers have proved having very deep understanding of SAP applications. The most recent one last year was the zero-day campaign, where threat actors created a specific gadget for exploiting a serialization vulnerability using specific SAP classes. And the complexity of that was significant. When we analyzed that, we realized, hey, the attackers behind this have a very deep level of expertise and knowledge, not only from around SAP, but also around Java and the NetWeaver technology. So really believing that threat actors don't possess that level of knowledge would be unwise from a defender's perspective, because we need to secure these applications the same way we secure our entire IT landscape. If these applications are under attack, the same way the rest of our IT landscape is under attack, so we need to implement security measures. We need to understand that these attackers are going to go after our crown jewels, which in most cases are SAP. So have your program in place to identify those vulnerabilities, but also to detect who's doing what for those. And with that, I want to thank you for listening to this interview, and looking forward for more to come. Thank you.